Psycho-Pass was one of the defining seinen anime in the early 2010s, in an era where it's full of self-insert characters and fake deep edgy anime catered to teenagers. This anime is highly praised by a lot of fans. This would be in my top 5 list for sure. It is by and far the best anime of 2013. This isn't the typical action-filled anime. But years later, Psycho-Pass is pretty much irrelevant. But Echo, how can you say that? This anime is still being praised and recommended to people to this day. Well, I'll answer your question with a question. Did you know that this anime has a second season? I know some of you said yes. Now, are you aware that this anime had a movie, another trilogy of movies, a third season, a 3-episode continuation to that third season, and another movie, literally just back in 2023? Exactly. For a large majority, they most likely do not, or they either dropped it or forgot they ever existed. So, what happened? What went wrong, and was it really that good? Yes, in fact, it is so good that it became its curse that led to its downfall. But how does that happen? Isn't that what you want for your series? To answer that question, we need to analyze what made this anime so beloved in the first place. And it first began in Season 1. This anime takes place in the year 2112, in a futuristic Japan, and our MC, Akane Tsunemori, is about to work as an inspector for the first time. Now, because it is set a century ahead of time, society has changed a lot. More specifically, the way they enforce justice. You see, they have established a system where every people's threat level is measured by their mental state. It's called the Sybil system, and the reading they use to measure the mental state is called a Psycho-Pass. According to this reading, the higher your value, the higher your chances of being a criminal. And there are a lot of factors to getting your coefficient up, such as upbringing, trauma, emotional stress, and many more. With these combined factors, you may not be a criminal for now, but according to the system, you have a high probability of being one. Meaning, if you happen to be a Blue Archive fan in this world, you're cooked. It's over. Your Psycho-Pass can be scanned using this cool gun called the Dominator, and your Psycho-Pass severity will determine how this thing will hurt you. If it's low, it will not shoot. If it's a bit high, it's going to be a non-lethal paralyzer. And if it's very high, well, you're dead. And now you're asking, how can they do their job properly, considering how law enforcement can be psychologically scarring to people? I mean, someone has to see the tapes of how Diddy used those 1,000 baby oils in his mansion, and being psychologically unwell is a big no-no in this society. Well, here comes the enforcers like Kogami. These are trained people with high Psycho-Pass coefficients, but are legally allowed to be free, with the condition of having to do the dirty work in their operations. Now, with this advanced and futuristic way of finding criminals and upholding justice, things are going to be fine, right? Everyone's happy. Well, not all people. For example, in the very first episode, they are chasing down a man who did some bad things to this woman. This man definitely has an abnormal Psycho-Pass. So, like I said earlier, he's cooked. And after dealing with this guy, Akane attended to the victim, consoling her. But while she was doing this, something weird happened. Her Psycho-Pass crime coefficient also became very high, and it's due to the emotional stress and trauma she suffered when she was kidnapped. Having an abnormal Psycho-Pass is contagious. This woman, the victim of this whole ordeal, according to the Sybil system, is a potential criminal who needs to be eliminated. And all of them, besides the MC, are just fine with it because it's the law in this anime. Another main focus of the Sybil system is to make sure everyone's mental state remains normal according to their standards. And when I say make sure, they will make sure. In order for you to have a stress-free life, the system will decide everything for you. The moment you graduate high school, your role in society is already determined based on your Psycho-Pass and personality. Some can further their education and some can't. Every media has to be Sybil approved to prevent people from getting their Psycho-Pass higher. Imagine living in a world where all you hear is music like Imagine Dragons. That's a dystopian world I don't want to live in. And here, everyone is required to follow these rules. If not, it's either you live but you're going to be stuck in asylums where some can recover and some get stuck forever, you live and be qualified enough to work under inspectors, or you're dead. And this aspect of the civil system is reflected in the setting in a very subtle way. It's mundane or normal. Like nothing's wrong. There are no blinding neon lights, no flying cars and all that. And narratively, this is an unusual yet good setting for a cyberpunk anime like Psycho-Pass. Because as much as I love the usual cyberpunk aesthetic, sometimes it kinda distracts us from the fact that the cyberpunk genre is actually dystopian. The aesthetic is cool, but you do not want to be in a cyberpunk setting. So in this anime, when something's off, you will notice it, and it's low-key eerie and unsettling because they act or look normal about it. It's already ingrained in them. It kinda screams, there is no war in Ba Sing Se energy. The dystopian aspects of this anime are highlighted more because, ironically, it looks normal at first sight. The cool stuff is minimalized so that we can see better what's wrong as a viewer. Now, if I stop here, this anime would be your typical cyberpunk setting of how ultra-advanced technology has negatively affected society. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, if we really do stop here, you're already greeted with an interesting setting, decent action, and story arcs with gripping mystery and some plot twists as our characters slowly investigate and find out who's the main criminal and the reason why they're doing the crimes. But the actual biggest reason that this anime has been praised this much by everyone, the reason this anime became something more, for the better or worse, which we will talk about later, is because of the villain, Makishima Shogo. Makishima is the criminal who's responsible for the most heinous crimes in this anime, and when they had a chance to take care of him, obviously based on the civil system and what he has done, this guy is gonna die a horrible death once he gets shot by a Dominator. But this is when things get interesting, because when he was scanned by the Dominator, Akane was shocked because after looking at the Dominator, his Psycho-Pass was normal. 0 even. And now you ask the questions, why is his Psycho-Pass normal? Why does he even do this? What are even the criteria for having a normal Psycho-Pass in the first place? And suddenly, this seemingly black and white anime about hunting criminals in a cyberpunk Japan turns into this morally grey spectacle. Yes, this society looks ideal, considering it's designed for you to live a stress-free life. People are prospering, as long as they're mentally stable. Yet this guy, who clearly is a bad person, a fan of King Von but not of his music, preaches about the flaws of this new society and the essence of free will that is clearly almost non-existent in this setting because a ubiquitous automated system decides everything for them. And he has a point because, yes, he kills innocent people and we should not condone his actions. But he did not do all of this because someone or something told him to do so. He did all of this for the love of the game. He had a choice and he chose what he wanted to do. He had free will. And in a twisted and disturbing way, he believes that this is what makes him more human than the rest. Because of this guy, this anime will bring out some questions and themes about morality, justice, politics, free will, mental health, and being human. Also, how can the widespread integration of AI and advanced technology into the government and society affect these things? This is what made Psycho-Pass really good. The characters and their teams. This anime shows you how this advanced society has affected the people. They have their own ideals and their own motivations, and they have their own stories that will be gradually revealed to you. But no matter how much they clash, they still work together to get the job done. They can also be pretty fun characters as well. I love this guy. Kogami, although he looks like the typical stoic character, is also pretty witty. And Akane, well, I find her cute. That's what the Kanahanazawa rub can do for you. And then on Makishima, he loves quoting philosophers and pieces of literature too much. If he were a real person, he'd be the most insufferable person you'll ever meet. But because he looks like a dating option for an otome, he's pretty cool. And speaking of the tree, they are the core of Psycho-Pass's themes. These characters, although they have different ideologies, different approaches to doing things, and different personalities, these characters are so intertwined with the show's themes and with each other that they don't even realize how similar they are with each other. It's just the civil system treated them differently. Akane is so academically and mentally capable that she was given the privilege to have a choice of how to live her life. In contrast, Kogami was punished for making a choice, while Makishima is not bound by any of those, thus he can do what he wants. Now that I told you why Psycho-Pass Season 1 is really good, it makes you wonder, How did it become irrelevant throughout the years? Why is this video being made? Well, besides the ad revenue, the beginning of its downfall started when the first season ended. But before that, I would like to put first a minor spoiler warning. I will have to tell you the status of some characters here because it has something to do with the fall off of the series, but at the same time, I will not spoil you onto what actually happened to them or spoil you the story of the series itself. So if you're okay with this spoiler warning, let's continue. Oh, and one last thing, subscribe if you like this video, it helps me keep making more stuff. That's it, let's continue on what happened after season 1. Now, as to why it started to decline after season 1, I have two probable reasons. And for the first one, you know the big three of this anime that I just mentioned earlier that made Psycho Pass really good? Well, what if I told you that the two of them are gone? I'm not gonna tell you why or what happens next, but they're gone. No offense to Akane, in season 1 she's a good character, she's meek and gentle but at the same time, she has integrity and compassion for other people and she's bold enough to stand with her convictions no matter what. But without the other two, she cannot carry the show by herself. And that's what happened to season 2. It was a flop. In fact, it was so mid that I dropped this anime the first time I watched it when I was a teenager. The failure of season 2 really derailed the momentum of the entire series since then. And for the reason why she cannot carry the series, it's not because of her, but because the anime lost its main drivers of the story. And that is all three of them. Not one or two, but all three of them. Especially Makishima. They represented the core themes this anime is talking about with their motives and narratives. Remove that, and Psycho Pass will now be just like your typical action seinen anime. And I think they're aware of this, because from season 2 onwards, they would introduce new characters in every installment, and it's obvious that it's a replacement for a previous character. And they're misses. They clearly wanted to fill the void. Characters like Kogami and Makishima left, and the new characters just don't hit the same. The characters are either replaceable, background characters, or annoying. In fact, we have this Makishima knockoff, and he is so bland. His name is Kirito. Like, this has to be intentional. It can't be any other way. And then if you're still here for the season 1 characters, well, beside the main characters, they're also just there, sitting in the background. And for the second reason, which also has something to do with Makishima, if you watch season 2 onwards, you will clearly sense a shift when it comes to the anime's focus. You see, when I mentioned what made Psycho Pass really good earlier, it's always because of the thought-provoking themes and the characters. This is what the viewers fell in love with while watching season 1. But towards the end of season 1, it's clear that the anime wants to explore the Sibyl system further and what its true nature is. And from season 2 onwards, that's the main focus of the whole anime. And a large portion of viewers did not give a crap about that. Not because it's boring, this plot is a typical plot for a cyberpunk show, but because this is not what the first season showed us. Season 1 is more about the characters being affected in this advanced society. Emphasis on the characters that gave us philosophical themes that made this anime compelling, with a tiny exploration of the lore about the Sibyl system. The Sibyl system is just a plot device to drive the characters forward. But from season 2 onwards, the Sibyl system became the plot. The focus went from the characters and the philosophical themes to its world building. And in my opinion, that's a bit less compelling than what we had in season 1. Although, to their credit, the third season wasn't that bad despite having a new cast of characters. It had that same vibe that season 1 had when it comes to them investigating the cases that are connected to one big picture. But still, it's a long shot. They don't have the depth, the poetic writing, the charismatic characters, and the character dynamics season 1 had. The majority of the viewers who liked season 1 were like, the Sibyl system plot and finding criminals are still cool, I guess, but we really wanted the character dilemmas and the themes when these three were the focus. And for the reason why season 1 felt different compared to the others, it's because Psycho Pass is an anime original, meaning they could change up things in the story along the way, unlike a manga or light novel adaptation, unless they don't. And that's what they kinda did. The main writer and the concept maker for the first season was not that present as the years passed. With this, I can speculate that this caused the series to change when it comes to styles of writing, storytelling, and focus and presentation of the plot. However, it didn't exactly mean that this anime automatically fell off just because of changing the plot focus. I mean, Vinland Saga was first aired as this anime full of rage and violence for bullied teenagers to project into. Then now we have I Have No Enemies being quoted everywhere like they just listened to a J. Cole album or something because of a second season that is completely different from the first one. So why is this not the case for Psycho Pass? Well, the main reason is that, unlike in Vinland Saga, not every change was for the better of the entire series. You see, besides the problem with the characters I mentioned earlier, the anime will show some things that don't make sense in the established setting, like how body parts can now influence a person's psychopath, when a psychopath has been established as purely a mental thing. The movies and seasons usually lead to kinda dumb or underwhelming progressions and conclusions. Sometimes I'm starting to lose sense of what's happening because they don't fully explain, show, or hint at any major plot key points or changes. And in season 3, even though I kinda enjoyed it, they legit gave the new MC a mental superpower that doesn't make sense in the anime, where he can replay someone's event in his mind through intense empathy? I still don't get it despite searching for its description. It's kinda like those replay mechanics on those Arkham games, except it makes sense. Reading people through their body language is still understandable, but this is absurd. It's basically a cheat code on their investigation. I saw someone compare this anime's dilemma to Death Note after L was gone, and as much as I can see why, I think I have a bit more accurate comparison. And I call this dilemma the Far Cry 3 effect. Now, I know, another pretentious schmuck on YouTube using the term effect, but hear me out. So imagine this, there's this installment where the villain became so iconic that he became the poster boy of the entire franchise. He is charismatic, but at the same time, he also has a compelling dynamic with the main character. You love this character, and bam! He's gone. You realize that he's not actually the main villain. It's this thing that no one cares about. Then in the next installment, they tried to emulate the same character time and time again, until it came to a point when the series completely deviated from what made it iconic in the first place. Psycho Pass fell off because the first season became so good, too good that they couldn't keep up with it, whether by emulating the formula or changing it for the better or worse. And whether they're good additions or not, for example, I kinda like season 3, it doesn't matter for the others, because season 2 was so painfully mediocre that it stopped them from watching the later installments. The anime movie continuation format not being popular before Mugen Train didn't help either. And for every new release, they were basically like, if it isn't like season 1, why bother? In fact, I could say that the first season felt like a prologue to what the show actually is. But because the prologue was so good, and then the other installments were mixed in quality while being entirely different from the prologue, this is all they only cared about and nothing else. Psycho Pass basically suffered from its success. Now, as to where Psycho Pass is currently, well, it did fall off. But it's not that bad. After watching the whole thing, it is still ongoing as this video is being made. Despite the lack of marketing and hype, they still have a strong, dedicated niche fanbase waiting for new seasons and movies to come. Because although seasons 2 and onwards are mixed in quality, they're not exactly that unwatchable. My entire point is that they were not a satisfactory follow-up to season 1. If it were a different title, this would have been a fine cyberpunk crime drama anime series. It's not necessarily a cup of tea for a lot of people, but the series as it stands now can be a goldmine for some. But what do you think about Psycho Pass? Let me know in the comments below. That's it. See you next time.